You have one of the most interesting labels ever, which is Illegal Art, they've done so much for remix culture, from re-releasing Steinsky's Lessons, which is amazing, to the band People Like Us. You've released every one of your albums, Pay What You Like. So you must be the most popular artist that it has your entire discography available for free.
Yeah, I mean, the initial CDs we did just press traditionally, and then we went back and said, okay, now it's 2010. We can do Pay For What You Want on all of those. So, and that was different to me back then. I mean, this is just a side note, but you know, I felt like in 2002, 2004, it was really important for me to have a physical product and not just have it free online. So it was
like Night Ripper's still on Amazon, right?
Yeah, and there's still CDs for everything up until, except for All Day. But you know, I thought for those early albums, that was very important to just, I didn't want to be this like novelty that was online. I want this to be as official as everything else, so we have to do the CD, which doesn't really exist now. It's not as big of a deal, you know? But yeah, Legal Art, like, I think I initially heard about them on MTV, actually. Like, one of their first release that they ever put out was a compilation called Deconstructing Beck, and it was all unsolicited Beck remixes. And I was in the negative land in high school, and there was a group from Columbus called Evolution Control Committee, who to me is really important in the history. It doesn't get a lot of shine. But like, they, to me, kind of did maybe the first technical like mashup. Like, you know, it's hard to define that. But anyways, like they did, I was into that culture. Like I was into experimental music, noise, all those different things. But I love the idea of collaging. It just was a more accessible version of that underground. But I saw something on MTV, and it was like about a lawsuit or a cease and desist against this label, Legal Art, for this compilation Deconstructing Beck. And you know, I like Beck, I'm a fan, but I just loved the idea that someone was like, oh, we're gonna do a compilation, just these unsolicited remixes. And being a fan of all that stuff, I was into it. So, and it seemed like a big deal, like what is this label, what's up with it? And then kind of when I started to get involved in doing that music, maybe a year or two later, I sent it out to a handful of labels. One was Evolution Control Committee, who was releasing records. One was V/VM, which is a label from Europe, and a group that did a ton of like crazy stuff that I love, early 2000s. And one was Illegal Art, and they, you know, it's kind of run by one guy who goes by the name of Philo and like his crew.
Philo Farnsworth.
Yeah, and he, you know, he was into the stuff, and he was like, keep sending it to me, and I was excited. You know, it was like sending your stuff to a label, and at that point in time, having a label is important. It's not like now where you just put it on the internet. So eventually I had enough stuff where he's like, all right, we're gonna release this record, and I was like, cool. And then from that point forward, in all honesty, I've never had any like creative control from him, never influence. I kind of send him what I think, this is the album, this is what I think would be a cool album, and he's been into all of it, and it's evolved a lot and changed a lot, and to his credit, like he's been down, and I think for him, you know, it's a boutique label. You know, they release like a couple albums a year, and it's all been sample based, and it's been all over the map, from like more pop oriented stuff recently, like Junk Culture, to more experimental music, to more historic stuff like Steinsky. But the cool thing to me is like it's kind of been like a partner in the whole thing, because at no point in time did we ever think like, oh, this is going to be the ticket, this is going to go here. So at every level that it kind of rose up, they were sticking by me, and they, you know, they did their best to get it out to larger people, larger fan base as the popularity grew. And simultaneously, I like tried to tour as hard as I could. And we kept going. So at every stage, it was kind of like, oh, holy shit, it's like this now, or oh, holy shit, it's like this now, you know. So I feel like we were both pretty naive just in terms of like the business side and everything, but it just kind of worked out, and it's really unique. You know, I felt like Philo kind of has his vision, and it is what it is, and he never like was like, oh, Night Ripper's blown up, we got to sign these artists, or we got to do this. It was like, he's on the same track, and I feel like they don't get much recognition. You know, a lot of people don't talk about it. It's like, in the broad scheme of music, like I've never really seen like articles on Illegal Art, like here or there, you know what I mean? But for a label that's been doing it for 10 plus years and been dedicated to such a specific thing and just sticking by it, and it's a pretty like ballsy world. I'm really lucky, because I don't think, like, if he wouldn't have put out the first record, I may not have had the motivation to continue to do that style of music, you know. Once the labels put out there, it's like, okay, I'll do another one, and like everyone kind of built up. So he was just so critical in kind of like making it happen for me.
This is a tech conference, and seeing in the tech world, people basically using your work as a data set. I mean, there have been amazing visualizations coming from the tech scene, doing real-time sample analysis, doing players that break out the samples and where they're at. Of course, I made one myself using Mechanical Turk that, you know, shows where the years of the source samples came from. Have you seen those things?
Yeah.
What's your take on?
It's on a similar level to me. You know, it's cool that there's any feedback, you know, the response. Everything's like a remix. This exists, I want to respond. It's inspiring someone to do something in some way. So the visualizations of it are like, you know, it's like, that's a music video to me. And there's people who have made music videos to it, set to like, people have used, you know, the actual video clips from the samples, and people painstakingly like assembled those and everything. It's like, you know, I love it. It's just right in line with what I'm doing. And you know, when I'm making the records, I never thought like, oh, it'd be cool if this inspired others to do this. I never really thought like that. But then once I saw it, I was like, this is great. This is, you know, unbelievable. And you know, my whole process is very detail oriented, and I labor over, and then I see some of these visualizations of the thing, or video musics, or you know, even the girl walk all day thing, all of those. It's like you can tell people like put in the time and have their own version of like laboring over this art. Very different interpretations of it, very different output, but you know, very similar in terms of just, you know, the mindset of just being inspired enough to really spend time to make something new out of it, and to create something out of this previously existing media.
And just to wrap up, I was curious where you think things are going in music, because it just seems like everything is changing right now. So all those major labels, not labels like illegal art, but like the traditional label and publishing system, they're just not as necessary anymore. Obviously we've had home studios for ages, but now you have things like Kickstarter to handle the funding. You know, have Bandcamp, SoundCloud to do the hosting, iTunes for distribution, and social media for all the marketing. Where are things going? Like,
I do think major labels are still like needed right now for a certain level of artists, you know, for the Jay-Z's and the Kanye's, and to reach like those millions. But you know, I think it's been what everyone's been saying. It just has really brought it to the hands of the people. And I was doing an interview with someone the other day, and they kind of mentioned that, you know, I'm 30, so it's like I am involved in this, like, you know, I love keeping up with what's happening, but I never really even noticed that he kind of mentioned that people don't even download music anymore. It's straight like streaming on SoundCloud. Like downloading's even old, you know what I mean? Like it's not
Spotify already.
Yeah, you don't even have to like have it on your computer. Like that's the crazy next level. So yeah, I don't really know exactly where it's going, but I love seeing, I don't want to see anyone lose their jobs, obviously, and I've met lots of people who work at these major labels who are interesting music people and have worked hard from the ground up and do various things. But ultimately, I don't know, it's like people get used to the way things are, and it's like, this is the right way. You know, we should be making this amount of money, and this amount of money should go in the record, and all this or that. But, you know, physical recorded media is it's a pretty small sliver in like the history of music. You know, it's only really, I don't know, like when was the wax cylinder invented? I have no idea. But it's really been like 100 years or whatever, basically. And music has existed before and after. And for me, ultimately, beyond like how people are going to make money or any of that, like I'm not even so concerned with that, but to me it's like when there's fundamental changes in the world, like that spawns new reasons for starting a band, different motivation for a new generation. And that's like what the 60s are. So that's what every generation is, you know. It's just like, this is what's happening, that's why there's this reaction, and the music is the output of that. And this change is like maybe the most radical change, you know, getting away from recorded media, not needing these labels, all this stuff. And it's just spawning this whole new generation. And just, I can't imagine what it's like to be 12 years old right now and just being like, why should I start a band? Like the motivation for starting a band when you're 12 now is probably very different than when it was 1990 or 1980 or 1970. So for me, ultimately, just the more change in that, and I do think artists should be paid and this and that, and it's a complicated system. And I'm not saying like this is the right or wrong. It's just exciting, you know. As this change happens, ultimately, it's just going to result in new perspectives and new reasons to start bands and new inspirations, new perspectives of the world. And we're already seeing it, you know, with like the younger bands coming out and just how they're approaching everything. And it's cool, you know, it's the most exciting thing that I've seen in music, you know. It's like only parallels. I don't know, like, I guess like 90s like gangster rap was a major thing, and 90s alternative was a major thing, but this seems even bigger. Like it's not that specific, it's just a broad thing. And it will be exciting to see where it's at in 10 years, because I think we are on this line, and I think this will define this generation. You know, this transition into this new era, and it's hard to define what it's going to be, but I'm sure 10 years down the road, everything we're talking about right now will probably seem really naive, and people will be on YouTube laughing at this and loving it, and it will look like a special about the internet on MTV in like 1992, you know?
That's probably the safest bet of everything we've said so far, yeah. And I think we'll end on that. Gregg Gillis, Girl Talk, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.